What's good, Wizards fans? It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott. Today, we're going to react to an article by Keith Smith talking about whether he thinks Deni Avdija will get an extension, and then we're going to answer one question that was left over from the chat from last night. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so we were reading the article from yesterday by Keith Smith, NBA. He goes on to say this about Deni Avdija. Of course, if you don't know Deni Avdija, he's going into a contract year. The Wizards, after this upcoming season, he'll be a restricted free agent. They have the option to re-sign him, or they could possibly trade him before the trade deadline. Basically, the Rui Hachimura situation, basically the Troy Brown situation, the Kelly Oubre situation. We've seen this situation with our draft picks many times again. So this is a big year for Deni. So I'll read the article here, or the quick paragraph from Keith Smith. He says, Deni Avdija, if Avdija could shoot, he'd be a lock for at least an $80 million extension, but he can't shoot and doesn't seem to be improving in that phase of the game either. The Wizards have a complicated summer with some key free agents and a new front office making the decisions. They'll delay this one until restricted free agency in 2024. Keith Smith's prediction is no extension for Deni Avdija after the season. Brandon, what are your thoughts on the article by Keith Smith?
I'm not very surprised, man, because, if you look at the NBA today, it's a perimeter-driven league. You got centers out there who are shooting threes at a high percentage. So if you're at the wing or at the four and you can't shoot, you're gonna find yourself on the outside looking in. If you look at Deni, his defense is on point. It's always been his offensive tool bag, right? He can't finish with his left. He can't dribble with his left. When he finishes, he can't finish through contact. 3-point shot has just been underwhelming, not consistent. There's times where he hits it, but here's the thing with Deni. We said this all year long, man, is that it's just a case of confidence. When he has confidence, then he improves. But, he's a young guy, and confidence is an issue with young guys, not just Deni. But I'm not surprised because, again, the NBA is a perimeter-driven league. So, we said it before, going into this offseason, that it behooves Deni to work on his game because going into a contract year, whether he stays in D.C., whether he moves on, which I believe he's going to move on, he's going to be a trade piece. He's when he wants to get paid. So to get paid, you've got to add some offensive repertoire to your game, and so it behooves him. So I'm not surprised. I definitely think that he's going to be a trade chip because, again, if you're not going to keep him, you got to get some kind of value. But then again, looking at Deni Avdija and even Rui Hachimura and a lot of these last draft picks we've got, it kind of showcases how terrible our front office was because it's when you're drafting guys, you have the intent that you're going to retain them and have them be a part of your future going forward. And the fact that how many draft picks have stayed here long term, we're drafting guys and letting them walk. It doesn't make sense. So I think that it's just another example that showcases why we desperately needed another front office and the guys come in who know how to value picks, who know how to evaluate picks, and especially looking at second rounders, getting more out of your picks. So I definitely think we're in better hands with this new front office. But yeah, Deni is just, again, the ball's in his court. He has to improve his game because, I've said this before, man, is that I think sometimes we kind of overvalue our young guys. I think that Kispert, yeah, he took a step forward last year, but his value is still not up there yet. Johnny Davis, if he has any shred of value right now, I'll be surprised, even though I think that he's going to take a step forward. And, even in looking at the trade for Rui, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the trade, but really you got to ask yourself, looking at, how the market is, how much more could you really have gotten? I believe we could have got a better bench piece, but, getting back into Deni, are we overvaluing him a little bit? Yeah, I think we are a little bit, especially I think the former front office was. Defensively, look, I got a problem with him on defense. You know, I mean, we watched him shut down Giannis at one point. You know, he can play defense. It's just there's a lot of factors that led to Deni not being ready. I mean, number one, you know, nothing against overseas leagues, but the NBA is the gold standard. You know, I noticed a lot, you know, with the Euro League and, you know, and over in Israel is that, you know, from a defensive standpoint, defenders give shooters a lot of space to shoot. I think that he came over here with a lot of confidence because he was the man over there. But, you know, when you come over from a league where you're the man to a league where you're really just another NBA role guy or a starter, you know, he had to learn, he had to get that confidence back up because, again, he came from an environment where he was the man. And now you come to the NBA where it's like, look, people are not going to give you that space to shoot. People are going to get in your face. You got to get that shot off quicker. You got to be able to be more consistent three-point shots. So, you know, it just comes down to him working on his game, and hopefully he goes to an organization where they can develop him and really work on that shot release. Because if you notice, man, look at tape at him, you know, or tape on him, he's got a slow release, and that comes along with, you know, being in an environment where defenders aren't in your face. You know, you a lot of room to, you know, let you get that shot off. I mean, I don't know if you remember a lot of the old school shooters like Sijakovic. You know, if you look at Peja Sijakovic, a lot of these foreign shooters back in the day, one of the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of them are shooters because, you know, again, there's not a lot of defense in these leagues overseas. But then they had to learn how to get those shots off quicker because, again, in the NBA, they're going to get in your face. Pat Beverly's not going to give you any kind of room to shoot. He's going to get in your face. So, you know, he's got to work on his game. And I think that he did put in some good service here, but it wasn't the right system. It wasn't the right fit. You know, we were kind of in flux in the gray area. We didn't know if we were going to try to compete or rebuild. And we both said it's tough to develop guys when you're trying to go to the playoffs. So, you know, I think that in the right situation, you know, he will develop into a decent NBA starter, but I think it's going to have to be elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is guys, you know, started to sag off him. You know, LeBron wouldn't even step out there to guard him. He had to be moved out of the starting lineup because nobody was going out there and guarding him. So their teams were packing in the paint against it. So it just made it tougher. But they decided to put Gafford in and just have two bigs, which doesn't provide more shooting, but it just allowed Porzingis to kind of float around the 3-point line a little bit more. But Deni started, but he just wasn't a threat from the 3-point line. And Keith Smith goes in and talks about that he if he could shoot, he'd be getting $80 million. All the things you talked about, his defense, his playmaking, his passing ability, the way he can rebound the ball. He had a 20 rebound game. There's a lot of things that he is good at. He's a jack of all trades, but hasn't really been a master of everything just yet. But we love his defensive versatility and the talent's there, but the finishing has to work on the finishing around the rim, dunking the ball more. We've seen the turbo week. We saw the turbo time where he turned up. He did that against some lottery teams. Did look really good against the Celtics with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, where he had 25 points, where we blew them out. But once again, Bradley Beal didn't play. Can he do this when Brad is there against a legitimate playoff team? That's the question right there. As far as the front office, yeah, they made solid picks. Talked about this yesterday, where all the picks are just solid, but they're just not home runs. You know, they haven't been able to develop these guys. And then when it gets time to make a decision before free agency for these guys, they ended up trading him. They end up trading them for Rui for 3 second-round picks and Kendrick Nunn, who didn't provide anything. Troy Brown Jr. That was Ernie Grenfell, but you look at the value. We got Daniel Gafford, who's a good player, and now we end up with Deni, and I agree with Keith Smith. But looking at Denny's numbers, I mean, he shot 29% from the three, which is worse than what he did last year, which is really surprising to me. I mean, he didn't shoot well at all from the three. He shot 31% his sophomore year, 31% his freshman year. And then, you know, we hear about him working out with Drew Hanlon in the all season. He played really well in FIBA. We watched those games, and, you know, he got worse from the 3-point line. So, I mean, he regressed in that way. He scored more points, 9 points a game, went from 8 points a game to 9 points a game. Free throw line, he shot worse, went from 75% to 73%, which is not much worse. I'm not going to ding him for that. Did rebound the ball more, went from 5 boards to 6 boards a game, 2-point percentage, shot 52, went up to 53. So, yeah, just very consistent. He's reliable, played 76 games, played 82 games the year before, but just finish around the rim, dribbling with his left hand. It's just a lot of question marks in his game and a couple glaring weaknesses that you see in his game that it's just concerning to give a guy $80 million. I definitely wouldn't give him $80 million. And his trade value right now, it's lesser than Rui. To me, I think it's about the same. You probably, if you do trade, you probably get a couple second-round picks. I don't see you getting the first for Deni at this point, and it's a new regime. It's a new front office, so they have no ties to him. no relationship with him at this point. So, I mean, if Tommy Shepard was here, maybe he might get the extension. But now with a new front office here, like you said earlier, he's probably going to be used if they do make any trades this year. I do think he would be the guy that would be used in trades more than I would say Corey Kispert. I think with a contract year coming up, I think they're going to try to move Deni for maybe a 3-and-D guy, or maybe a point guard that could come in and defend as well, or shoot the three. So I personally don't see Deni getting it either.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Kispert, man, but and we already said that the NBA is a perimeter-driven league, man. I mean, it's centric on a 3-point shot, and Kispert can shoot at a high level, and he can slash, and the basketball IQ. And there's nothing against Deni, man. I think Deni has a lot of potential. It's just like I said, my belief is this. A lot of these guys can come from different leagues, and it's not just Israel, it's not just Euro leagues. You see this with Australian guys too. Ben Simmons, another example, because he came from the Australian league. It's just, you come from leagues that have different priorities in different leagues. Like I said, in the Euro leagues, man, it's more an offensive driven league. So you have more space to get your shot off. It's more offensively driven. We're in the NBA. Look, people gonna get in your face. People will make it very uncomfortable for you to get that shot off. So he's got to work on his game. He really does, because defensively, he's on point. But I think one more factor that I'm gonna talk about when it comes to Deni, man, is just he himself has to find out what his place is in the NBA as far as what his game is. If defense is gonna be your thing, then go with that, because there's a lot of people saying that maybe he should have the ball more in his hands. I get that from a playmaking perspective, but then again, if you don't have a left hand, the defense is going to catch on, and they're going to force you to go left. So there's ways the defense, because they're going to get you. The NBA defenses evolve fast. We saw that last season. Defenses, people study film. It ain't just in football. People study film, and they really look at players. So he's got to work on his game, and it really behooves him from a personal standpoint, whether he's with his team or not. Just for his longevity in the NBA, man, he's got to work on his game, because again, this league is a league full of shooters. So you cannot be that odd man out who can't shoot, because you're going to find your way out of the NBA. And I don't want to put that on him, because he's a young man, and I do think he has potential. It's just, that's another thing about the NBA. You have to work on your game, especially, when you go through eras. You have to constantly evolve. If you look at Daniel Gafford couldn't shoot very much when he came to DC. Now, brother man's out here hitting mid-ranges. So it's possible. You just got to work on your game. So that's where I'm at with Deni, man, is that just for longevity for his career, not just looking at his fit with the Washington Wizards going forward, just for his fit in the NBA, he's got to evolve his game. He's got to work on his game. So that's where I'm at with Deni, man. I think he has potential, but unfortunately, I just think that his time with the Wizards are coming to an end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about Deni a little bit more. We're going to get to a quick word here. Before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is a big help when it's hard to get Mystics tickets, Commanders tickets, even the DC Defenders who went to the Super Bowl. So Gametime, it makes buying tickets super, super easy. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And last thing I'll say about Deni too, the developing of him, of course, his rookie season. Scott Brooks was the coach. He was a 3. They made him a 3-and-D guy when he's really not a 3-and-D guy. He's not. The way that Josh Giddey plays is would be the best way for Deni to be that point forward. But at the same time, we talked about before, the left hand. When he's bringing the ball up, he has to turn his back to the defender, because little guys are trying to take the ball away from him, or they're just cutting off his left hand, or they're cutting off his right hand and making him dribble left, and he's picking up his dribble, basically posting guys up from half court at that time, just because he's not able to get past guys at all. And, he's playing off ball next to Bradley Beal, because Bradley Beal is going to dominate the ball. He's going to have the ball for the most part. Monte Morris had the ball. So, Deni being that 3-and-D guy where he's going to have to knock down threes because he's not having the ball in his hands, that's where he struggles. Can he finish around the rim off a backdoor cut? Can he dunk on somebody? Can he do that? Can he finish through contact? There's still question marks there. So I would love to see him in that point forward role, but for him, that would be off the bench with the Wizards. That would be his best. That would be the way he could do that. When he gets the rebound, he gets it and goes. He's best in transition, but when he's in a half court setting, what value does he give you? How consistent is he? He'll give you a string of some really good games, and then there may be a game where he'll go out there and go 1 for 9 from the field and 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. So it's just a roller coaster ride with him, and Rui was a roller coaster ride too. So I mean, he had some good games. He had a couple stinkers, but you kind of knew what Rui's role was, and Rui was a little bit more consistent as a scorer and just creating a shot for himself from the mid-range game. You knew what Rui was going to do on offense, but Deni, you just still you just don't know what you're going to get from him on the offense side of the ball. Corey, you know what you're going to get. What you're going to get, he's going to knock down threes, he's going to cut, he's going to finish around the rim. But Deni's the best defender, of course, between all the guys that we've drafted in the Tommy Shepard era, but. There's just some stuff on the offense side of the ball. And then this will be his offseason. This will be his first offseason where there's no COVID. He's not playing FIBA. So, what will he do with a full offseason where he's not playing in FIBA? He didn't play in Summer League the year before either. So this is it. This is it for him. So we'll see what happens. I'm rooting for him. Yeah,
I mean, I want him to succeed. I think he's got a place in the NBA. It's just I'm a reiterate. I know I'm beating a dead horse. It's just I can't say it enough. This is a league where 3-point shooting is a preferred skill right now. And it's a different era. Like I said, I grew up. I'm an 80s baby. I grew up when the mid range was king. ISO ball was king. Going from Jordan to Kobe but now with Steph, this is a 3-pointer shooters league, man. I mean, when you got Dame Lillard hitting shots from half court, I mean, it's just the way the game is now. You have to have a consistent 3-point shot. Because again, you have centers like Cat that are hitting threes at a high level. It's just you've got to be able to shoot. And from a defensive standpoint, he's on point. I have nothing negative to say about his defense, man. It's just his offense. The left hand, finishing through contact and his 3-point shot. You have to improve. So, like I said, whether it's with us, I don't see it happening because development time is at an end, man. You're not, typically you're not going to extend the guy for $80 million for a guy who's developing. At this point, you are what I'm not gonna say you are what you are, but to a certain degree, you are. You know what I mean? You are at, year 4 in the NBA, man. If you kind of are who you are. So he has to put some work into this offseason, man.
Right. So I'm looking at a guy named Kyle Anderson. They call him Slow-Mo. And that's when I watch Kyle Anderson play, I feel like, that's basically who that might be. That would be a good comparison. Of course, you look at Josh Giddey, that could be a comparison. Just guys who don't knock down threes, but they still impact the game in different ways. Kyle Anderson shot 41% from the 3-point line this year, but he only shot 1 3 a game, so it's not a lot of volume. He shot 33% the year before, but Kyle Anderson's numbers are very similar to Deni. 9 points a game, 4 assists, 5 boards. There's games where Kyle Anderson has double-doubles. He's a good passer. He's a connector. He plays power forward, small forward, very versatile, but can't shoot a lick. But he impacts the game in different ways. So, and right now, looking at Kyle Anderson's contract, he's making $9 million per year. Now, thing with Deni, now if he would have went to a different organization, if he would have been drafted by the Spurs who are developing guys, or the Thunder who are developing guys and taking their time, then maybe his career would have went a different way. And like you said earlier as well, he was drafted to a team that's trying to make the playoffs, even though they have not been successful making the playoffs the last 3 years, or they only made the playoffs in 1 of the last 3 years. It doesn't give guys a lot of time to develop. Where if like Johnny Davis, if he went to the Spurs, he probably would have played more games. If he went to the Thunder, well, not the Thunder, maybe the Rockets or some of the other teams that were in the lottery heavy, he probably would have played up more games. Deni would have played up more games and been able to make more mistakes and maybe try out that point forward role a little bit more than what he has, and maybe he would have been at a different point in his career. So some of it's on Tommy Shepard, and it just wasn't a good fit. He was claimed to be the steal of the draft, and we'll see. But we'll probably get to the question on the next episode. Brandon, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Nah, I mean, before we roll, man, you said the perfect comment, man, which is it highlights Tommy Shepard's regime, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, because you draft guys, especially at that draft position, guys who are ready to play. We failed the draft Halliburton, who was NBA ready, for a guy that needs to be developed. It's just, so that's, again, it highlights how far we've come, man, because it just, again in the draft, and that's why I'm optimistic about this group because they know how to evaluate talent, man. Because you've got to hit on these draft picks, man. And the fact of the matter, we had Tyrese Halliburton right there, and he's NBA ready. So, you hit the nail on the head. But I'm good, man. Kind of the parting comment, man, is Deni, the ball is in his court, man. He has to improve his game because, what is he? I mean, what is the vision for him going forward? Is he ever going to be that starter? Who knows? He may be a role guy because you said Kyle Anderson. I think that's the perfect comparison, man, because slow-mo, my God. I mean, watching him drive to the lane, man, is an all-day experience. But it's a good comparison. He could be a role guy, and that's all good, man. Just excel at what you do, man. Work on your game. So,
yeah, and last person, even possibly Draymond Green, just a guy who's a good passer. But we just don't have guys that shoot the lights out like Steph and Clay. Draymond shot 30% from three, but he's averaging 8 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds, similar to what Deni's averaging. And I know a lot of the Deni fans right now, they probably won't be happy with us, but we appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. And it's always good to have a difference of opinion. I know a lot of Deni fans don't even want him to be on the roster. They want him to be traded anyway. So, but we'll see. Like we both said, we're rooting for the guys. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. We're going to try to do some draft talk stuff and maybe try to get some insight from some other reporters on other teams, maybe some from the Locked On Hawks or Locked On Thunder to talk about Travis Schlenk or even Will Dawkins. We want to thank you guys for listening. Hell to the Wizards. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube and subscribe wherever you guys get a podcast. Hell to the Wizards. Peace.